Don't bring Ava. She'll ruin the vibe, my sister Kayla said, like she was talking about mismatched napkins. Not my 6-month-old baby. Dad chimed in from the background. We want clean photos this year. Real family portraits. That night, while they slept in their perfect suburban house, I unlocked the door with the spare key they never bothered to change and emptied the base of their glittering Christmas tree. At 6:42 a.m., Kayla texted me in all caps. They're screaming, "Where are the presents?" I looked down at my daughter, still asleep in her car seat, and whispered, "Merry Christmas, baby girl. My name is Rachel Adams. I'm 28 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was the family disappointment. The single mom who worked late nights, drafting floor plans for small contractors, feeding Ava between sketches, stretching every paycheck until it snapped. I was the one they invited out of obligation, not affection, the one who showed up with homemade cookies while everyone else unwrapped iPads, spa vouchers, and plane tickets. But this year was different. Harrison Design Group offered me a creative associate position with a starting salary of $76. Real money. Not just enough to cover rent and formula, but enough to breathe. Enough to finally show up to Christmas without shrinking in my chair. For the first time, I felt like I could stand eye to eye with them instead of beneath them. So I went all in. For Kayla, that French skincare line she flaunted on Instagram, $390 shipped from Paris. For my brother and his wife, a Dyson they'd complained about needing, $640. For mom and dad, a 2-night spa retreat in Aspen, $1,350 booked in advance. Even the cousins got premium gifts, noise-canceling headsets, cashmere scarves, restaurant gift cards to places that actually required reservations. Every dime came from my own account, built from overtime hours and sleepless nights, while Ava napped in a playpen beside my desk. Total bill? $3,400, more money than I had ever spent in my life outside rent and medical bills. But it didn't hurt. It felt like proof that I wasn't the failure they always whispered about. And then there was Ava. I'd bought her a velvet red dress with a white fur collar and soft black boots. Her first Christmas. She wouldn't remember it, but I would. I pictured her in front of that massive tree. The photographer capturing her smile. Finally part of something instead of excluded. That's when Kayla called. No. How's Ava? No. Congrats on the new job. Straight to business. Hey, Rach, don't bring the baby, okay? Mom's doing coordinated outfits, matching wrapping paper, professional photos. A crying baby would just throw it off. She said it like she was asking me not to bring a casserole. Dad's voice cut in from speaker. It's not personal. We just want nice pictures this year. I sat frozen. My daughter wasn't family in their eyes. She was clutter, a disruption, a problem to be managed for the sake of their curated image. Hours later, Kayla tried again, called me, crying, begging me to pick up. I watched her name flash across the screen. Then I pressed decline. They had no idea what was coming next. Your comment matters. Share where you're watching from, so together we can witness how far this story of courage can travel. Subscribe if you believe that sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Because what happened after that phone call wasn't just about Christmas. It was about reclaiming every ounce of dignity they thought I didn't deserve. The next morning, my phone lit up like a fire alarm. Group chat messages stacked on top of each other. 12 missed calls before I'd even finished pouring syrup on pancakes. Kayla, where are the presents? Mom. Rachel, this isn't funny. Dad. Grow up. You're ruining Christmas. I scrolled. fork in hand, Ava bouncing in her high chair beside me. Not one text asked how we were. Not one said sorry for the call. They weren't angry because they'd hurt me. They were angry because their photo-perfect holiday had collapsed. Uncle Rick chimed in. "Can someone explain what's happening? Cousin Taylor, did she really steal everything?" Kayla again. "She must have come last night. Who even does that?" I almost laughed. Who spends weeks hunting down designer gifts, pays over $3,000 out of pocket, only to steal them back? Me, apparently. To them, I was always the villain. It didn't matter that my hands had tied every bow, written every tag. The moment I stopped playing servant, I became the problem. That morning, while they argued in the chat, I loaded the trunk of my car again. Not to take the presents back home. Not to return them for refunds. No. I drove to Maple Avenue, to a women's shelter tucked between a laundromat and a boarded-up diner. A place I knew well, because 3 years earlier, I'd walked through those same doors with Ava still in my belly and a backpack of clothes. The director, a woman named Darla, looked half asleep when she opened the door. "Donations?" she asked, already bracing for bags of old sweaters. "Not exactly," I said. Popping my trunk, her eyes widened. High-end skincare kits, cashmere scarves, gaming headsets, a Dyson still in the box, toys with plastic wrap unbroken, even gourmet chocolates I'd ordered just for Dad. "Are you serious?" she whispered. "Every tag stays," I told her. "Read them out loud if you want. Each one says, 'You matter. You're not invisible. Merry Christmas.' From someone who's been where you are." She hugged me so tight, I nearly cried right there. But I didn't. I got back in the car, wiped my eyes once, and looked at Ava asleep in her car seat. She didn't know it, but her Christmas morning was spent saving mine. Back at home, my phone buzzed nonstop. Mom sent a private message. "You're being cruel, Rachel. Bring the gifts back and let's move on." Cruel. That word stuck in my teeth. Cruel was raising your voice at a daughter every holiday. Cruel was making me feel like an obligation, not family. Cruel was calling my child clutter. I dropped the phone on the counter and turned up the music. Ava and I danced in our pajamas, syrup on our cheeks, while the family chat boiled without me. They could scream into their screens all day. They had no idea I wasn't done yet, because the next twist didn't come from a text. It came from the entire internet watching Kayla try to shame me. She thought she was destroying me. Instead, she handed me the perfect stage. Kayla thought she was clever. On December 27th, she posted a picture of the tree. Just the tree. Bare. Empty. Her caption, "Some people only give so they can take it back. Lesson learned. Family shouldn't come with strings." The comments poured in. Cousins, neighbors, even strangers weighed in. "Wow, that's low. Who would do that to their family? So selfish." Every word pointed at me. Even though my name wasn't written, I was the invisible villain, the scapegoat. I sat at my desk in a glass-walled conference room, 41 stories above Chicago. Chopsticks in hand, sushi box open. Junior designers pitching $1 million lobby project to clients. My phone buzzed with notifications under the table. Kayla's post was gaining traction. When the meeting ended, I closed the door to my office, pulled up Instagram, and stared at her caption. That's when it hit me. Silence wasn't enough anymore. They wanted a performance? Fine, I'd give them one. My profile had always been private. Our family didn't follow me. Most had written me off as too depressing. Perfect. I selected a photo I'd taken the week before. Ava, in her little velvet dress, sitting in my lap. Behind us, the Chicago skyline framed by floor-to-ceiling windows. On the desk, a sleek, black gift bag stamped with my firm's logo. No caption, no explanation, just a tag, the official account of Harrison Design Group. Within minutes, likes rolled in from colleagues, industry contacts, clients. The firm's page reposted it to their stories. And just like that, my secret was out. My family discovered I wasn't the broke single mom they pitied. I was the lead creative director at one of the most prestigious firms in the country. My name was printed on the leadership page. My salary a matter of public record, upper six figures, more than my dad had ever bragged about at the country club. By the time I got home that night, my phone was buzzing with a new tone. Mom, we're so proud of you. Kayla, you should have told us sooner. That's amazing. Dad, let's start fresh in the new year. Proud. That word made me physically recoil. Where was that pride when I worked double shifts at Romano's Diner? Maya strapped to me while I served tables. Where was it when I skipped meals so Ava could eat? Now they were proud because my name came with status, because they could flaunt me like a trophy. I typed one reply and hit send. Didn't think you wanted anything ruining your aesthetic. Then I put the phone face down and laughed until my stomach hurt. But I wasn't stupid. I knew them. Pride would curdle into envy. Envy would rot into resentment. They couldn't stand me having power they couldn't control, and I was right. Their next move didn't come in texts or posts. It came in a phone call to my HR department, asking for my salary, my start date, and my home address. Pride turned sour, faster than milk. One day they called me a disappointment. The next, they called me their pride. And within a week, they were already digging for dirt. The email from HR arrived on a gray Monday morning. Subject line, employment verification request. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. Inside, a polite message. A caller claiming to be your relative asked for confirmation of your salary, start date, and residential address for an article. We declined, but wanted to make you aware. An article? No. This wasn't about congratulations. This was about control. Someone in my family couldn't stand that I'd finally outranked them, that my success wasn't theirs to spin. They wanted proof, numbers, something to use against me. They hadn't stumbled across my job by accident. They were actively investigating me, calling my firm directly, trying to turn my win into another reason to shame me. I took a deep breath and typed my response. Thank you for flagging. Please direct any future inquiries to my assistant. Also, file a privacy request on my account immediately. I pressed send, leaned back in my chair, and stared at the city below. The skyline glowed with winter sun, but I felt ice crawl down my spine. That night, Mom's voice message landed on my phone. She didn't even bother to call. Hey, honey, just wanted to say how impressed we are. Your dad's been telling everyone at the country club about your promotion. We're so proud. I stopped the recording halfway. Pride again, pride, like a badge they could wear. Not once did she mention Ava. Not once did she say she was sorry. Just pride, that now I was a name they could brag about. That's when I realized their sudden affection wasn't love. It was leverage. They weren't happy for me. They were hungry. 2 days later, Kayla texted me, dinner at Mom's this Friday. Let's make peace. Bring Ava. She even added a smiley face, as if we were teenagers squabbling over clothes. I stared at it for a long time. Then, I locked my phone and walked away. They set the table for reconciliation. I didn't show up. I didn't even reply. To some people, that might look cruel, but to me, Walking into that house would have been stepping back into a cage I'd already broken free from. Instead, I spent that Friday night sitting cross-legged on the living room floor with Ava. We built a tiny tower out of blocks, toppled it again and again, laughing until she squealed so loud the neighbors upstairs stomped on their floor. That was peace, not a dinner table dripping with fake smiles. The group chat exploded later that night. Kayla, why didn't you come? Mom, Rachel, stop punishing us. Dad, this is childish. I set the phone down without responding. I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting myself. But my silence didn't calm them. It provoked them. And soon, they'd cross a line I couldn't ignore. The line they crossed came fast. HR forwarded me a second message a few days later. This time, not a phone call, but an email from someone pretending to be a journalist. They wanted a comment on my sudden rise at Harrison Design Group. Attached was a list of invasive questions. Exact salary, clients I handled, even my home address. They thought they were smart, anonymous, but they underestimated how protective a major firm is of its people. IT traced the email back to a personal account. And while they couldn't share the name, I didn't need them to. I knew. Only one person in my family was desperate enough to risk pretending to be press, Kayla, the sister who told me not to bring my daughter because she ruined the aesthetic, was now trying to ruin my career. I stared at my laptop, Ava gurgling in her playpen nearby, and felt rage rise like fire. But I didn't report it to the police. Maybe I should have. Maybe some people listening right now are shaking their heads. Why didn't you call a lawyer? Why didn't you slam them with charges? Here's the truth. I was tired of fighting battles that only chained me to them. Involving cops, lawsuits, it would have kept them in my orbit. And I was done orbiting around people who saw me as expendable. So I stayed calm. I called HR, thanked them again, and filed every protective measure the company offered. That was enough. I refused to let them drag me into their mud. Still, Mom tried to smooth things over with another message. Your father's telling everyone how amazing you are. He's never been this proud. Let's all move forward. I almost laughed. They had turned me into a status symbol. I wasn't Rachel, their daughter. I was Rachel, the firm's director, the paycheck, the talking point. That night, I put Ava to bed and sat alone in the quiet. I thought about the years I'd begged for even scraps of acknowledgement, about the dinners where I sat on the edge of the table, unspoken, unseen. Now suddenly, I was valuable because they could name-drop me at cocktail parties. It wasn't love, it was marketing. And then came the text that told me everything I needed to know. Kayla, look, I messed up, but you can't just cut us out. Family is everything. Family. I whispered the word out loud, tasting the bitterness. Then I wrote back 3 short sentences that I had been holding in for years. Family isn't blood, it's trust, and you broke it. I hit send and set the phone down. My hands were steady. My chest felt light. What happened next wasn't rage from them. It was panic. They realized for the first time I was serious, that I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't coming back. The calls doubled. The chat messages grew desperate. Even cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly cared. Offers of, let's do a family trip, or come design my office lobby, cluttered my inbox. Every word screamed of manipulation dressed as reconciliation. I ignored it all. Instead, I pulled out a folder from my desk drawer, a travel packet I'd been building quietly for months. Work had just greenlit an international project in Florence. 3 weeks in Italy, remote flexibility included. My ticket out wasn't just emotional. It was geographical. And as I booked the flight, I smiled for the first time in weeks. The game they kept playing didn't matter anymore. Because soon, Ava and I wouldn't even be at the table. We'd be on a different continent entirely. By March, I knew I couldn't stay in Chicago another day. Every text from my family felt like a chain tightening around my chest. So when the Florence project landed on my desk, I didn't hesitate. 3 weeks in Italy, on-site meetings, in coordination with contractors. On paper, it was business. In reality, it was my way out. I booked the tickets without telling anyone. At the airport, Ava's brand new passport felt stiff in my hand. She was 6 months old, dressed in a tiny fleece onesie, chewing on the corner of her blanket as if nothing in the world could shake her. Meanwhile, my heart pounded like I was fleeing a crime scene. Maybe, in a way, I was. The flight was long. Ava fussed at takeoff, then slept against my chest as I stared at the seatback screen, wondering if I was making a terrible mistake. But when we landed and I stepped outside into the Tuscan air, warm and fragrant with coffee and stone, something inside me unclenched. For the first time in months, maybe years, I could breathe. Our apartment was on the 5th floor of an old stone building near the Arno River. No elevator, just winding stairs that creaked underfoot. I carried Ava up every night, groceries balanced on the other arm. The place itself was small but perfect. 2 bedrooms, wide windows spilling sunlight, and a balcony framed by terracotta flower boxes. From the street below, the hiss of steam and clatter of dishes from the cafe mixed with the laughter of people heading home from work. By day 3, the barista knew my order: cappuccino, no sugar. Our days formed a rhythm. Mornings were video calls with Chicago, Ava in her high chair, banging a toy, while I sketched revisions for a hotel lobby. Afternoons we wandered. Cobblestone streets, piazzas full of fountains, the shadow of the Duomo stretching across tourists and locals. I bought gelato every other day. Pistachio for me, a lick of vanilla for Ava when she reached out with chubby hands. Evenings, I tucked her into a rented crib, then leaned on the balcony railing, watching the city hum beneath us. For the first time in years, the silence in my head was gentle. And then came Sophia. She was the Florence project coordinator, sharp and quick-witted, with an ease that made everyone around her relax. She had a way of raising her eyebrow when a contractor tried to cut corners, and somehow they always backed down. We started with professional dinners, work talk, schedules, budgets. But soon, the conversations shifted. Childhood stories, failed relationships, long debates about architecture and music over bottles of Chianti. I found myself laughing, really laughing, in a way I hadn't since before Ava was born. One night, over plates of pasta and too much wine, Sophia leaned in. "Have you ever thought about staying?" I laughed instantly. Ava's whole life is back in the States. Doctors, daycare, everything. This is temporary. But she didn't back off. "You know the firm just opened a Milan hub, right? They're looking for someone to lead. It's not public yet, but the partners trust you. If you want it, I'll put your name forward tomorrow." Her words rattled in my chest all the way home. I laid Ava in her crib and stared at the ceiling fan spinning above us. My mind refused to quiet. Could I really build a life here? Could I pull her out of Chicago and plant us somewhere new? I thought about the years of scraping by. The Christmas they told me my baby wasn't welcome. The way they flipped from disdain to pride the second they realized I had money. I thought about my father bragging at the country club, about Kayla trying to dig through my HR file like my worth belonged to her. And then I thought about Florence. about the cobblestones under Ava's stroller wheels, the sound of church bells at noon, the freedom of not glancing over my shoulder every time my phone buzzed. 2 mornings later, I walked into the Florence office, palms sweating. "If the Milan roll is open," I told Sophia. "I want it." Her grin spread wide, like she had been waiting. "Good. You belong here." By the end of the week, a 2-year relocation contract sat in my inbox. Milan, leadership role, autonomy, a chance to stop defending myself and start living. I sat at the little kitchen table while Ava banged a spoon against her tray, and I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace that didn't come with strings attached. That night, I opened Instagram. Not my old account, but a new one. Clean slate. I posted a single photo. The balcony at dusk, rooftops glowing orange, cappuccino cup balanced on the railing. Caption: "Sometimes the table you begged for a seat at doesn't deserve you." The reaction was immediate. Likes from colleagues, messages from friends, and then the calls from home. Dad, Mom, Kayla. Missed calls, stacked like bricks. They knew what it meant. They understood I wasn't coming back. I didn't pick up. I stood by the balcony instead, lifting Ava into my arms. Street musicians played below, a violin weaving through the night. She clapped her tiny hands, her laughter echoing off stone walls. And in that moment, I understood something I had never truly grasped. I wasn't running anymore. I was building a life where my daughter was never an inconvenience, where love wasn't conditional, where freedom wasn't borrowed. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was free, truly free. The relocation contract came through on a Wednesday morning. I signed it before I could second-guess myself. 2 years in Milan, a leadership role I had only dreamed about. When the digital ink dried, I stared at my laptop screen and felt a quiet rush spread through my chest. This was it. I wasn't tethered to them anymore. My future had a new address, and for once, it was mine to choose. 2 days later, the buzzer to my apartment startled me while I was feeding Ava oatmeal. I almost ignored it, assuming it was a delivery. But when I checked the camera feed on my phone, I froze. Kayla, standing at the door, holding a Bloomingdale's bag. She hadn't visited once in the 6 months since Ava was born, and now here she was. I didn't buzz her in. I let the screen play out like a silent movie. She shifted her weight, texted me twice. "I brought something for Ava. Can we talk?" And then finally hung the bag on the doorknob before walking away. When I opened it later, I found a teddy bear. Expensive, soft. The kind of gift meant to look thoughtful, but bought on the way over. Inside the bag was a card. "Let's not let one misunderstanding ruin everything. We love you and Ava too. Let's talk soon. XO." No apology, no acknowledgement of the things they'd said. Just misunderstanding, as if telling me not to bring my child to Christmas was a scheduling error. I set the bear aside for a moment, then picked it up again and dropped it into the donation bin by the corner store. Ava didn't need love that came with conditions. The next week brought something darker. HR reached out again, this time with news that someone had called pretending to be a family member, pressing for details about my salary, start date, even my home address. It wasn't curiosity, it was calculated. They wanted proof, ammunition. I thanked HR, told them to route all calls through my assistant, and hung up. My hands were steady, but inside, I was burning. Every line they crossed confirmed what I already knew. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as leverage. Then Mom sent a voice message. Her tone was syrupy sweet. "Honey, we're so impressed. Your father's been telling everyone at the club. We just want to celebrate you." Celebrate me? Where was that when I worked double shifts at Romano's Diner? When I showed up with nothing but cookies and hope? Now I was worth something, because my name looked good in their mouths. I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on packing, sorting clothes into suitcases, selling the stroller we'd outgrown, making lists of what to ship overseas. Every task felt like shedding skin I no longer needed. Still, the messages didn't stop. Kayla again. Please don't cut us off. Family is everything. Family. The word landed heavy, but it didn't sting anymore. I typed back the only truth that mattered. Family isn't blood. It's trust. And you broke it. After that, the desperation escalated. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to reconnect. An uncle emailed me about redesigning his office for exposure. My father called twice in one night, then sent a text. You'll regret this, Rachel. You can't turn your back on us forever. But by then, I had already booked our flights. Ava's passport was tucked safely in my purse. The tickets read, Chicago to Milan, one way. I looked at her sleeping face in the crib, her little hands curled into fists, and I knew there was nothing left to regret. We weren't leaving the table. We were leaving the game entirely. And soon, the only sound I'd hear on Sunday mornings wouldn't be my phone buzzing. It would be church bells over a city that felt like home. Milan greeted us with light. Not the harsh, fluorescent glow of Chicago's office towers, but golden sunlight spilling over stone courtyards, bouncing off glass storefronts, warming even the narrowest alleys. Our new apartment was modern, clean, full of windows, with a little balcony garden already sprouting herbs left by the previous tenant. Ava toddled toward it on our first morning, pressing her palms against the glass, squealing at the sight of pigeons strutting along the railing. I stood behind her, suitcase still half unpacked, and felt something I couldn't name at first. Then it hit me. Peace. The office was 10 minutes away by tram. Sleek and full of energy. My assistant greeted me in 3 languages and remembered how I liked my coffee after the first day. The team treated me not as a burden to prove, but as a leader worth following. No backhanded compliments, no quiet digs, no one waiting for me to stumble, just respect. Our days filled quickly. Mornings at the office, afternoons in parks or piazzas, evenings sharing gelato, while Ava learned to say ciao to every stranger passing by. On Sundays, church bells replaced the buzz of group chats. Instead of scrolling through guilt-laced messages, I painted with Ava on the balcony, watercolors staining her tiny fingers. Both of us laughing too loudly. For a while, I half expected them to show up. A surprise flight, a knock on the door, a final attempt to reel me back. But it never came. The calls slowed, the texts thinned, the silence stretched. At first, it felt strange, like bracing for a storm that never arrived. Then, it felt liberating. Their absence wasn't a void. It was space. I heard through cousins that my mother cried, that Kayla tried to spin the story to anyone who would listen, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. My father apparently asked around about flights to Italy, but nothing happened. Their lives carried on in that carefully curated bubble. Filtered photos without me, without Ava, and that was fine. I didn't need to correct their narrative. Let them believe whatever made it easier to sleep at night. I was done performing. Months passed, and my name appeared on contracts I once only dreamed of reading. Luxury hotels, galleries, projects with budgets that would have sounded like fantasy back when I was scraping tips at Romano's Diner. I walked home from the office some nights, the streets humming with scooters and voices, and caught myself wondering if all of it was real. It was. The proof was in Ava's laughter, echoing off the courtyard walls, in the way she clapped along with street musicians outside cathedrals, in the quiet of evenings when the only sound was her soft breathing beside me. On her second birthday, we spread a blanket in a park near the Duomo. Friends from the office came, neighbors we'd grown close to, even the barista who had memorized my order months earlier. Ava raced around on a tiny red scooter, gelato smeared across her cheeks, collapsing into my lap as the sun sank behind the spires. No guilt, no manipulation, no drama, just joy. And in that moment, I understood the lesson I had been clawing toward all along. Love isn't about bloodlines or obligations. It isn't about picture-perfect portraits or curated appearances. Love is trust. Love is showing up when it's inconvenient. Love is letting people be messy, complicated, human, and holding them close anyway. My family had every chance to give me that. Instead, they chose control. They chose shame. They chose to cut my daughter out of the frame for the sake of aesthetics. And in doing so, they cut themselves out of our lives. I don't hate them. Hate would still tie me to them. Nah, I just don't need them anymore. They taught me, in their own cruel way, that survival isn't enough. You have to build something better. And sometimes that means walking away, even when your whole life you were told family is everything. I looked at Ava, sleeping on the blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling under the fading Italian sky, and I whispered the truth aloud. Family isn't blood, it's trust, and we have all we need. That's our story. It started with a Christmas tree, stripped bare, and ended here, in a city that feels like freedom. We wake up to church bells instead of arguments. We fill our days with color instead of criticism. And when I think about the future now, I don't brace for the next storm. I look forward, because the life we're building isn't perfect, but it's ours, and that's more than enough.